What's up, degenerates? This is Locked In. I'm your host, Mason Cameron, at PFF_Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta, at Vishaal_Gupta95 on Twitter. We're getting to the end of the road here. We just have a few more weeks of the regular season, a few more weeks to build the bankroll for the playoffs. Everybody knows they want to be betting big in the playoffs. And so we're here to help you do that. How you doing this week? You got some winners for us?
Yeah, doing great. And yeah, definitely got a bunch of winners to hand out this weekend. Should be a good one. Have a pretty good slate this week. I think we have a couple of fun games on Saturday and then, our usual Sunday slate to get through, but it should be a good one.
Yeah, there's a bunch of games throughout the slate, a lot of really good ones. We have 2 on Saturday, which we definitely have some picks for. We're going to talk about tonight. We also have, a big matchup in a few big matchups in the afternoon window. I mean, there's good football on all Sunday, all Monday too. So it is going to be a good weekend. And of course, I forgot to share my screen. I always forget to share my screen, but we have some good picks. But unfortunately, we have to talk about a certain game that happened last night.
Certain game that had some crazy playoff implications.
And sadly, my Broncos lost. Unfortunately, a late collapse in the fourth quarter really just made all the difference here. But Denver falls to the Chargers 27-34. The Chargers ended up backdoor covering this thing a little bit. They had a -3. It looks like it might have closed at a -2.5 in some spots. Game total on this one, 41.5. They went over in that one handedly. I mean, what else is there to say? I don't feel like I can look at this one very objectively because it hurts. Yeah. It hurts. I felt like the Broncos played really well. They played a good game, but in the end, they just let them go in the fourth quarter, and it just was not good enough. 15 points, only scoring 3, and that 3 is the one that they took right there at the end where they're just trying to kind of swing back, get the onside kick, and have a chance at winning it. I don't know if that's necessarily the way that I would have gone about doing that, but I guess, it is what it is. And unfortunately, they came out short. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, just a crazy game of really two halves where Denver dominated the first half and the Chargers just came out swinging in the second half. It just felt like everything was working so well for Knicks and then offense for Denver in the first half. And then just too many mistakes, I think. You start with that, fair catch interference play right at the end of the second half that sets up the fair kick field goal. And then in the second half, just, again, more mistakes. I think the big play ended up being that deep pass from Knicks to Mims that maybe should have been a pass interference, but in reality, it was just not a good enough throw by Knicks. Too late, too much air underneath it, allowing the defender to get back there. That was really just a momentum killer, I think, for Denver. And then Herbert is able to go off in the second half. I mean, he didn't have a bad first half. He completed the majority of his passes. He just had that one interception that it was a good read, just not a great throw. But I think besides that, he still played well in the first half. And then things just started connecting for him in the second half. That first touchdown where he's rolling left and just throws it to the receiver, just running down the sideline. Just a great play all around by the Chargers. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think there's like crazy takeaways from either team, like in terms of the negative. It's just, Denver's a young team. They got a young quarterback, a lot of young playmakers. So, mental mistakes like that will happen for them. I don't think it's overly concerning in that sense, but definitely their playoff chances take a hit. And now, we have a small inkling for Cincinnati can sneak in there. And, you may not want to hear, but I think the majority of us non-Denver fans would probably prefer to see Joe Burrow sneak in there and potentially get a Burrow-Josh Allen first-round matchup. That would be phenomenal. So I think that's kind of what I'm rooting for here, and we have a chance at it.
It's okay, I'll just ignore that whole piece of it. No, but you are right. This matchup had huge playoff implications. The Broncos win last week had actually jumped them over the Chargers. Right. And then now that reversed course because the Chargers won the season sweep here. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, now they're fighting for their playoff lives because the Bengals are a hot team. They're a really, really good offense. And that's pretty bad, especially if, they're getting a defensive performance like they did last week, where, they had almost multiple two balls fumbled. I think I lost connection.
Yeah, it was cutting out a little bit. I think you're back now.
Okay. All right. There. I might have cut out there a little bit. But anyway, the Bengals, they could be scary if they're going to be getting the defensive performance that we see from them. So,
and we get Denver Cincinnati a week from tomorrow. So huge game.
Huge. That's going to be a huge game. Yep. That's a pretty big game for pretty much everybody in the race right there too.
Yeah.
That last wild card spot is probably going to be decided by it. So, but we head into this week. There's some great games.
Yeah.
There's some great games right on Saturday. Both games are excellent on Saturday, and we have a pick for one right to start. Pittsburgh heads into Baltimore. Baltimore -6.5 here at home. I'm not going to lie. That's a huge line. That's not what I was expecting. Game total on this one, 44.5. And I do just have to say, we unfortunately took the loss on them last week. And I'm not going to lie. I'm going right back to the well on this one. I'm going to take them at +6.5 here. I'm going to trust Mike Tomlin's boys, because if we talk about what they've done against the spread here this year, second best against the spread record in the NFL. They're 10-4. They are 6-1 against the spread as dogs. Now, unfortunately, that one came last week in a really not super inspired effort against Philly, it looked like. But when we look at kind of some of the trends of what we've seen from Baltimore, they have not been great against the spread since November. They're 3-3 against the spread over that time. But they also did cover an insane 16.5 point spread last week on the road against the Giants. This Giants team is just sleepwalking through this. And I'm haunted by the words that I said, like in week 4 or 5. V, I don't know if you remember this, when I was like, we're going to be taking this Giants team at some point this year. Some crazy. I said that. I'll take the complete blame for that. And I foresaw some lines like this being some places that they would sneak in, but they never had a chance in that one. And unfortunately, I think that has something to do with this line being so big this week, because frankly, I don't see that being the case. But V, you have some skin on the game total in this one. Tell everybody which way you're leaning.
Yeah, I'm liking the under in this game. Like you said, the spread was probably too big in this game. I also think the total is just way too high in this game. We all know the old cliche AFC North football, and sometimes we roll our eyes at that. Maybe that's from days gone by. But when these two teams play, it is still AFC North football, and you can just tell. Just look at the scores of the last handful of times these two teams played. Going back to the previous 5 matchups between these two teams, the game total in all of them failed to eclipse 34 points. So every single one in the last 5 games has been 34 points or less in terms of the total of the game at the end. And now we're talking about 44.5 or 45, depending on where you got it. It's just way too high. Specifically, I know we've talked about a lot in terms of Lamar not playing well against Pittsburgh, but it's just a point that needs to be driven home, because it's just a thing that continues to be true, and until he proves us otherwise, we have to continue talking about it and continue factoring it in when making our bets and handicapping this matchup. But if 5 starts against the Steelers, Lamar has thrown at least 1 interception in every game, only has 1 game where he has a passer rating of over 67, and that one game he had the passer rating of 80.1, so it wasn't very good anyways. And then he's been sacked 22 times in those 5 games, so he just really, really struggles when he plays the Steelers team. And good news for the Steelers defense, TJ Watt will be playing in this game. He had a pretty bad-looking injury last week against the Eagles, but he was a full participant yesterday on Thursday, and he has no injury designation going into this game. So I think it could be another struggling day, long day for Lamar in this game. George Pickens also already ruled out for the Steelers as well, so it could be a little bit of a struggle for Pittsburgh's offense to get going. But just overall, I don't know where we're getting 44.5, because, again, when these two teams play each other, it is hard-nosed football, and there's honestly just teams that make a lot of mistakes. If you go back to the first game, yes, it was good defense, but it was also just sloppy football from both offenses. If you remember that red zone interception Russell Wilson threw that just went to no one, that was a backbreaker, and those are the kinds of plays that kill overs. I think we could see something similar in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about the quarterback play from both guys, the last time they met, this game, the last time they played, 16-18. Like that's this game in a nutshell. This matchup in a nutshell every single time. Both quarterbacks under 210 passing, both with an interception, sub 70 quarterback ratings. Like that's the kind of football these teams play together. They're going to get together, they're going to run the football at each other, and they're going to try to prove they're tougher. So I think you're going to get a little bit of a closer matchup just because I wouldn't trust Baltimore to really explode offensively against this defense that's not really their MO, like you said. And I think when you get it at a 45, like that's 4 points too high for pretty much anything. I think you're going to get right under that 40 mark in a lot of places. Right. So I like it. I definitely agree. And this is going to be a great matchup. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic
And this
matchup.
is also a huge game in terms of a home field advantage because Baltimore's only one game out now. They win this one. It's a split season header. They could easily, win the AFC North if they can pull this one out. So huge game in that sense.
Yeah, I think the Steelers get the crown if they win, and Baltimore is gonna pull even with them, obviously. So man, anything can happen. And this is a road game for Pittsburgh. Like this is a huge game. And it's not just going to be a gimme, so they're going to fight hard. It's going to be tooth and nail. So this is going to be a good matchup. Can't wait to watch it.
Looking forward to it.
Can't wait to watch it. So we jump into the morning window, but there is one more Saturday game. If anybody is interested in some picks for that, or you guys have some questions on that one, hit us up in the Discord, importantnonsense.com. That's how you become a member. You can ask V or myself any of your betting questions all week. We also drop our picks in there. We have a message from our fearless leader, Steve Bonham. I'm checking in from dinner at the steakhouse to pour one out for David Montgomery over Bettors. Did you see that one, V?
I did. That's just, how does Vegas know, man? They somehow know every time. They just hit it right on the nose.
They sent somebody after him. I swear to God, they paid somebody because that's insane. So for anybody who doesn't know, I don't have a graphic on here right now, but for anybody who does not know, David Montgomery's season rushing total 775, right? 775 and a half. And he hit the under on that by a half yard due to his injury. Vegas knows, man. Vegas knows. It is crazy. Insane how they line those up, but that's why we're here, to help you know when they mess that up. But that was an insane one too. I think Jason even talked about it. He was like, that seemed like such a gimme, and it really was. He was on pace to well exceed that, obviously. So he would have been fantastic.
He would have even in 1,000 yards if he was healthy like these last 3 years.
Even in a split backfield. I mean, he was getting a lot of workload. So
tough.
Hey, man, that's a bad beat for you if you've ever seen one. But it's all right. We can win you back your David Montgomery money right here with Tennessee Indy. No. So we have Tennessee heading into Indianapolis. Indy minus 3.5. It looks like in some places up to minus 4.5. Yeah. I don't know where we're getting the 4.5 there from, but you'll probably find it at 4. That is where we found it. And game total on this one, 42.5 points. V, you have some skin on this one. Tell us which way you're leaning.
Yeah, this is the stinker of the week on my card, that I like to call it, and I'm going to be taking Tennessee plus 3.5. Similar reasoning as we had a couple weeks ago when we had Tennessee favored by 3.5 against Jacksonville, and it was just like, how can you be giving Will Levis that many points and then the hook on top of it? Same thing here with Anthony Richardson. Like, I love the guy, like, in terms of potential, and I'm rooting so hard for him because I think he could be so dynamic and so fun to watch. But at this point in his career, based on what we've seen this year, you just cannot be giving this guy this many points and throwing in the hook on top of it. It's just too many points. I don't care what the other team has going for it or what specifically doesn't it have going for it. But just, you can't be giving Anthony Richardson 3.5 points. He's, again, last week, another game where he completed less than 50% of his passes against the Broncos, threw another 2 interceptions. He has 3 straight games with a passer rating of 60 or less. So he's, we talked about some of the reasons why it might not be looking so good in terms of the stat sheet, because some of the players around him are not holding up their end of the deal. But we are also continuing to see Anthony Richardson also just not playing well enough. Just too many mistakes from this offense overall, whether it's Richardson not being accurate, receivers dropping passes, or now a new one, Jonathan Taylor dropping the ball at the goal line, just killing all their momentum. So when you do things like that, like you just cannot be getting that many points at 3.5. Alec Pierce ruled out for this one with a concussion, so fewer weapons for them to throw out there. On the Tennessee side, I mean, it's also very bleak. You're going back to Mason Rudolph because Will Levis continues to do Will Levis type things. He had another 3 interceptions last week and got benched in the second half. Rudolph is not like a much better quarterback, but slightly better in terms of taking care of the ball. So they have that going for them. But I think Tennessee can stay in this game primarily because of their rushing attack. Indy is giving up the 3rd most rushing yards per game at 141.86. Tony Pollard has been pretty solid this year, and then I think we finally saw Tajay Spears finally get the involvement that he deserved last week. He had a couple touchdowns against the Bengals. So if you can get that 1-2 punch going in this game, I think there's no doubt Tennessee should be able to not just cover, but they could win this one outright, I think. So give me the 3.5 with Tennessee.
Well, and they want to win it outright. They want to play spoiler here.
Yeah.
And they very much are as motivated as they've probably been. That's why they're changing quarterbacks. That's why Brian Callahan's pissed off in the media, yelling and ranting about
soft,
things.
Man.
Don't call these guys soft. They're going to come out motivated, I think, in this one too. So I am leaning towards you as well there. I think the big thing here is you have to see that sometimes you do just have to plug your nose and take some of these slightly worse teams when even like some of their against the spread metrics obviously aren't that great. When you look at Tennessee, they're 2-12. It's the worst against the spread record in the NFL. They've covered 1 game since September. But that 1 game was a divisional game. Yeah, and when you talk about what Indy's doing, they're not doing much better in the recent trends. They're 2-4 against the spread since the start of November. I just don't know. This is some of the things that we've talked about with the Jets, where I just don't know what they've done to get 3 and the hook, or even 4 in a lot of places. Like,
if you just look at their talent on paper, I could see it. Like, you have a big guy in Anthony Richardson who should be better than he is. You have Jonathan Taylor. You have Michael Pittman. So, like, on paper, I get that. But like you said, they haven't actually done anything to deserve this number.
No, not at all. So I definitely agree with you there. And we head into another interesting matchup.
You can call it a stinker. It's okay, Mason. You won't hurt my feelings.
It's okay. I put this stinker on my card too, but that's okay because stinkers are where you make money. Okay. Yeah. That's how we add a little intrigue, because sometimes with the good games, you just want to sit back and watch it. It's going to be a good game. We can make some money off of the stinkers. So what we have here is actually probably a certified stinker, really. The Detroit Lions are heading into Chicago and they're pissed off. And I'm sorry, buddy, we have to take the Bears down a peg a little bit in this one. Chicago -6.5 on the road, or excuse me, Detroit -6.5 on the road here. Sorry, I got that flipped around. Game total on this one, about 48 points. And I mean, what is there to say? The Lions have struggled recently with an 0-2-1 against the spread record since Thanksgiving. But I think they're pissed off. Yeah. I think they woke up with that loss last week to Buffalo. 90 total points scored in that game. And with the Vikings and Eagles pulling even with Detroit, I think you're going to see a really motivated team so that they show that this is their conference, that this is their division, and it's time for them to execute right here and right now with a bit of a soft matchup, frankly. Mm-hmm. The Bears have not gotten that head coaching bump that we kind of talk about a lot. It's actually been the opposite. They played some of their worst football over the last couple of weeks. 0-2 since firing Eberflus, outscored 68-25 over those last 2 games. And they haven't won a game since mid-October. 2-5-1 against the spread since then. Their last decent game did come against Detroit, but I just wouldn't expect the same here. I don't think you can trust them offensively. They look a little bit spotty in play calling. They don't really execute anything that well. The defense just hasn't really looked that solid as they did early on in the season. And I think that's probably also a direct, as much as Eberflus was an issue for them, I think he did add some creativity to their play calling defensively. And while they started to struggle early on in the season, it felt like they were kind of throwing the bag at some things. But everything's kind of fallen off the edge for them. I think right now, if you can get it at under 7 for Detroit, I think you take it. -6.5 is plenty for me. I think they're going to be pissed off. I think they're going to come out and show. And then again, I think they're also going to come out and really hold a struggling Bears defense, or excuse me, a Bears struggling offense down. And I'm kind of liking under 48.5. That's a big number. And while, Detroit might come out and put 50 on them, I think I'm going to hold up and say, this is going to be a pretty low scoring game for Chicago, and Detroit's going to come in just under that amount. I think you're going to probably see about 46 points in this game. So I am leaning on Detroit -6.5 and the under on 48. Partner, you have some skin on the game total on this one. Tell me why you're leaning which way you're going.
Yeah, I'm also definitely liking the under in this game. Just way too many points here when you have the Bears involved as one of the teams in this game. Chicago's offense, you've mentioned it, they've just been a train wreck recently. They have scored 20 or fewer points in 7 out of their last 8 games. They have not scored a single point in the first half of a game in 3 straight weeks. That's like impossible to do in the NFL, but hey, here we are. Part of it is that they've just not been able to run the ball well at all. They have less than 80 rushing yards in 5 of their last 8 games. That is abysmally low number, despite spending so much money on the running back position in the offseason. So you really just can't trust Chicago's offense to do their part in this game. So you would need Detroit to carry the load in terms of hitting the total. They're certainly capable of doing that. We've seen that countless times this year where they've hit the total on their own. I think it's going to be a little bit tougher in this game. Jared Goff has historically struggled when he's playing in Soldier Field in Chicago, even going back to his days with the Rams. He's played 4 times at Soldier Field. 3 times he's scored 14 or fewer points. The only game where there's only been 1 game where he threw for more than 1 touchdown in Soldier Field. In their only other outdoor game this year for Detroit, and yes, this is only their second outdoor game of the season.
Outdoor game.
True fact. They only scored 24 points when they went up to Lambeau in Green Bay, and 7 of those points came off of a pick 6. So their offense, very, very small sample size, obviously, but, offense has not been what it normally is when they have to play outdoors. And the big thing is, like Steve mentioned earlier, the rushing game going to take a hit because they did lose David Montgomery. He had 12 touchdowns on the season so far this year, so losing him is going to be a big loss. So, if you're, Jahmyr Gibbs is good, but we haven't really seen him as that workhorse back yet, so it'll be interesting to see what they can do. But if he is not able to, carry the load by himself, we're going to have to rely on the passing attack in an outdoor situation. So I don't see Detroit being able to do enough on their own in this one to hit the total. This should be a relatively easy under at 48.
Yeah, and isn't that incredible? Only 2. I mean, they've played a whole road schedule. It's not like they haven't played any road games. Like they've played a bunch of their road schedule already. And the fact that they've only had 2 outdoor road games is incredible.
That makes them getting the 1 seed all that more important because, you don't want to have Philly getting that 1 seed and having to go to Philly in the conference championship game when you don't have a ton of experience playing outdoors this year. So huge couple weeks for Detroit to finish off the regular season.
Yeah, exactly. And their only other outdoor game is going to be in San Francisco.
Yeah, where it's going to be nice, balmy 70 degrees, I'm sure.
Nice, balmy 70 degrees at the end of December.
Yep.
Oh, incredible. All right. So that does it for that matchup. And another one. The North is crazy. The North was absolutely insane this year, and I don't think anybody quite expected it. I recall when we were talking about division winners in the offseason, and the North came up, and we talked about Detroit, and we talked about Green Bay. We didn't talk a whole lot about Minnesota.
Nope.
Nobody talked about Minnesota, and now Minnesota is tied for the best record in the division. I mean, best record, well, in the division, but in the conference. And they've been incredible against the spread. So here we go. Minnesota heading into Seattle. And Seattle's playing for their playoff lives in this one, too. just got bounced out of their division lead. They're chasing the Rams. They're trying to get in there too. This is a huge matchup for them. But Minnesota -3 on the road. Game total on this one, 42.5 points. And I have a little bit on both the line and the game total here. I'm leading Minnesota -3. It's one of my favorite bets of the week. I just don't know how I can trust Seattle right now. And we're going to get into a little bit of it. Why? I have also over 42, and I am aware there's going to be a little bit of rain. But that's okay, or actually probably quite a bit of rain since it's in Seattle, I guess. But we'll jump into that when we do. Minnesota here, 9-4-1 against the spread. They're third best in the NFL. However, they're 2-2-1 as road favorites. I mean, it's a little bit tough to cover as road favorites, but they have covered their last two as 6-point favorites or more, which is an interesting tidbit because it tells me that they're back to feeling themselves. They had that little bit of a lull there in the middle of the year where they weren't quite hitting because they started as one of the best teams against the spread. I think they were undefeated through 7 or 8 weeks.
Something like that, yeah.
In terms of their against the spread record, but they're chomping at the bit to overtake Detroit here. I think that they want to send that message and take a huge game here. So expect their A game. And they've been bringing it. Like I said, 72 points over their last 2 weeks, and they've been holding teams down defensively. It's a pretty nice sight. They've absolutely boat raced every single team they've come up against. And like I said, Seattle's playing fives. They hold a 1-4 record this season as home dogs. It's tough to be called a home dog and to be 1-4 in those situations. Now, I understand they had that really long stretch where they had a ton of injuries on defense, but frankly, a lot of that comes down to some really inconsistent quarterback play. It's something that we've talked about. They drop back a lot, and they've been banged up in the backfield. You know what? I haven't gotten a chance to check on their updated injury report for the week, but did Charbonnet end up?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty clean report. Charbonnet,
Okay.
Walker, and Gino are all good to go for this one.
Okay, well that's positive news because I thought they were going to be really, really screwed in the backfield. But still, I think the logic still remains is that if they don't absolutely run the ball through this Vikings defense, they're really going to have a tough time keeping up with what Minnesota can do. I think that they can throw it around a little bit. I know it's going to be raining. I think they also are going to run over a Seattle defense that's struggled just a little bit fitting the run in recent weeks. So what I like here is over 42 because frankly, I think that we can see some production from Seattle, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to overcome a Minnesota offense that's going to probably take a commanding lead in this one and then kind of run the ball through Seattle's face. I really like what they bring in terms of scheme against Seattle, and I think we're going to see a pretty good matchup here, but -3. I think I'm just going to take that as long as it doesn't reach over the hook. I'm going to be comfortable taking that one there. And like I said, the over 42. Now, it's something to watch in the weather. If it starts to, forecast that it's going to be really, really windy, then I'm more worried about rain. Or I mean, more worried than I am about rain. Now, rain's obviously not like ideal conditions, but I think that you have a team in the Vikings that can run play action and can take advantage of the opportunities that they do have to throw the ball. So I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, take Minnesota -3 and the over 42. Partner, have you seen anything in this matchup that I missed?
No, I think you hit most of it. I think the big key here is just, like you said, it's just too hard to trust Seattle and what they're doing right now. It feels like too often they're putting themselves in a hole and they're just playing catch up, which is forcing them into all these drop back situations. And while they are certainly capable of being successful doing that, and it just has not translated into wins and feeling confident in Seattle going forward. They still have a good record. They're 8-6. So, I mean, we're talking about them like they're some doomed team, but
no.
Well, when they do play against these better, higher, level talented teams, it's just not really worked out for them. They got bull raced by Detroit earlier in the year. You get smacked by Green Bay last week. You've had issues with San Francisco all year, so it's just a tough situation for Seattle in this game. I think they're an okay team, but Minnesota is significantly better. You still have that Brian Flores defense swarming around and making life even more difficult for Gino than it already has been this year. So, yeah, I think taking Minnesota makes sense here for me.
Yeah, and Gino's one of those guys that's dropped back as much as anybody in the NFL this year. I mean, last week, somehow, for the first time all season, had under 25. Like, that's an incredible number. Every single week, he has 62.
He got hurt. I mean, that was part of it, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, he got hurt and he had to come out. And,
Yeah.
he's okay now. And I think you're obviously still going to be kind of worried that he's going to be limping around a little bit. But, yeah, I think you just have to worry, too, about some turnover-worthy plays and him throwing some interceptions and had a little bit of turnover luck in some regard. He's been a little bit better in recent weeks, but I still don't know if you can really trust him. So that's the way that I'm leaning against a tough team in Minnesota. So good matchup there. I'm actually really interested in that one. The next matchup we have on the schedule here, New England heading into Buffalo to take on the Bills. Man, the Bills are riding high after that one. They are minus 14 here at home. And the game total on this one, 46.5 points. The Bills are clawing. They're hoping that KC stumbles so that they can make up some ground here. It's still an uphill battle for them. And they're going to want to take out a commanding lead in this one. Partner, you are on the spread here. Which way are you leaning?
Gotta keep taking the Bills here, man. Minus 14. I know it's a big number, but what can you say about these Bills team that we haven't already said? They just continue to roll. They've scored 30 or more points in 8 straight games. That is just an unbelievable accomplishment for this offense. They've scored 90 points over their last 2 games. They're second in the league in scoring. Josh Allen has just been absolutely unbelievable, deserving to be front runner for MVP at this point. 25 passing touchdowns, 11 rushing touchdowns on the year. He has 3 straight games with a passer rating of over 115. Big thing for them also, their rushing game has come to life recently. Over 195 rushing yards in 2 of their last 3. They've almost hit 200 rushing yards in 2 of their last 3 games. That is a huge boost to an offense that is already phenomenal in terms of passing the ball. But now if you can add in that element of being able to rush the ball well, that just makes them almost impossible to stop. So no concerns about Buffalo's offense being able to put up another 30-piece in this game. Question is, what can you expect to see out of New England? And probably not a lot. I mean, despite some good play out of Drake May, New England just really has no chance in this game, I don't think. They've given up 25 or more in 4 straight games. They've allowed over 250 yards of offense in each of those 4 games. They've given up over 140 rushing yards in 2 straight. They got demolished by James Conner last week. So, should
absolutely
be
demolished.
Yeah.
I watched it slip away from me very quickly too. I thought that the Pats might be able to, I didn't think that the Cards were going to be able to do anything. And of course, they absolutely doused this team. And if that's any indication of what Buffalo is going to do to them, I don't know. Minus 14 on the surface looks like an obscenely big number, and it's a scary one to bet. Don't be afraid of this one.
No, don't be afraid.
This is a simple one here. And you hit the nail on the head. The last time that this team scored under 30 points was the middle of October. 34, 31, 30, 30, 30, 35, 42, 48.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. It's just fantastic every single week. I think that they're easily one of the strongest offenses. Josh Allen, I think, is I have to look it up again, but he is obviously the runaway favorite for MVP now. I think that we were talking about this early on in the year too. Can't remember which one we told you to put your money on, but I'm pretty sure that it was probably Josh Allen. So you're welcome. But anyway, so yeah, I think that you're gonna hit the nail on the head here. The Pats just don't quite have it in them anymore, unfortunately. No. And Buffalo is chasing down a number 1 seed. So I would definitely. The only thing that worries me would be if they get out to way too big of a lead, and then I don't know, maybe pull Josh Allen like mid third quarter or something like that,
Yeah,
some college ball stuff, and they backdoor cover it. But I think that frankly, this is going to be a 3-score game, easy. I think you're going to have a little breathing room if all things go well. So,
agreed.
I agree. The next game on the list here, we have fewer games on the slate here because most of my picks were from those only 2 games, and a lot of other stuff that we just agree on here down the road. But the next game we have on the list is the second to last one. V, we have a quick show going. Maybe it's because it was a nice, simple week. A lot of very straightforward things to talk about, I feel like. San Francisco here, heading into Miami. This is an interesting game, though, because it is all over the place at the books.
Yeah.
It is all over the place at the books. Depending on who you like, you can go and get them at plus about a point. So we have here with I know you're taking San Francisco at +1. Spoiler alert, you guys. But if you guys are leaning whichever way, you can shop around, you can get that. But that also brings up a good point that we talk about a lot, is that when these games do get to under that 3, under that 2.5, a lot of the times you can kind of lean towards taking them on the money line if you're thinking that you're going to take an underdog there. It's just going to give you a little bit of extra value here. So make sure you guys are shopping around on both if you are in on this game. But back to the info, back to the action. San Francisco heading across country to take on the Dolphins. Like I said, the spread varies from about +1 for each team. And the game total on this one, about 44.5 points. So I already told everybody, you are on the side of San Francisco here, and you are taking the points. And we'll probably talk about what you think about on a value for the money line here. But tell us what you're seeing in this one.
Yeah, I think this is definitely just a spot where I'm liking San Fran as a pick 'em, regardless of what the line is, whether it's San Fran -1, it's a pick 'em, or San Fran +1. I'm going to be taking the San Fran side, but obviously shop around where you can get the best value and best spread you can get it at. But yeah, San Fran, I'm liking to win this one outright. I think they're just a better team right now. We can start with their defense that has been playing better recently. They have allowed a total of 25 points in their last 2 games. That comes against games against the Bears, and then that Thursday night game last week against the Rams. They have allowed less than 260 total passing yards in those 2 games combined. So pass defense is really stepping it up. Going up against a Dolphins offense where Tua struggled mightily last week, only had 196 passing yards on 40 attempts. He had 3 interceptions and was sacked 3 times. It was just a brutal showing for him in that game. San Francisco's defense is probably not as good as what we saw with Houston's last week, but I think San Fran's defense is still really good. We know they still have big-time playmakers, whether it's Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, or some of those other guys. Big loss, though, for Miami injury-wise. Waddle is doubtful in this game with a knee injury, so there's a good chance he will not play in this game. Taking Jalen Waddle out of the lineup is a big loss for them. Still have guys like Tyreek Hill and Devin Achane, but obviously we know how big of a factor Waddle can be in this offense. San Francisco's offense, on the flip side, they're also not playing very well right now. They've scored 17 or fewer points in 4 of their last 5 games. Injuries continue to be a big problem for them. Trent Williams out again this week, and so is Isaac Guerendo. So it seems like they're on their 4th string running back with Patrick Taylor in this game. Even still, though, I trust Brock Purdy more right now than I do Tua. I think he was awesome 2 weeks ago against Chicago, where he had 2 touchdowns, 20 for 25 passing. So doing a good job completing passes. And I think that guy is still in there. He struggled last week, but they could have easily won that game, talking about San Francisco, if Deebo catches some of those balls, especially that slant. That would have been probably a walk-in touchdown for him. So some of his playmakers need to step up and do their part too. But I just think San Francisco's defense should be able to overwhelm Miami, and I just can't trust Tua right now, given what I've seen. Anytime they play, an even half-decent opponent, it seems like Miami struggles quite a bit. You can't be expected to be playing the Raiders every week where you can just blow them out. That's not how this league works. You have to be able to show up against some good teams, and Miami hasn't done that yet. So I'm going to take San Fran in this one.
Yeah, and it might be something worth looking to on like the first half stuff, because San Francisco's been holding teams down in the first half. The last 2 games, just 3 points in the first half. And when we look at the Dolphins, they really weren't stellar in the first half last week. They got off to a slow start. I think that might be another spot that you can look at as well. And I agree with you. I think that we've just seen a little bit better football from San Francisco, a little more resilience, even though Miami looks like they're supposed to be fighting for a playoff spot. But I mean, you really wouldn't tell if you saw what they're kind of putting out on the field. So
Right.
I'm right there with you, partner. I think that even with the traveling, I think that that's probably what plays into this being kind of a goofy up and down line. I
Yeah.
think I'm still probably more comfortable with what we're going to get from San Francisco, because you're also traveling, but you're not getting weather. It's not like San Francisco's going into a weather, they're going into Miami. It's going to be 80 degrees on Sunday
Yeah,
in Miami.
for sure.
So Merry Christmas in Miami, I guess, right?
Yeah, right.
So I'm definitely with you there. In the last game on the slate here, we picked a lot of not really like super compelling matchups, but they're ones that are going to win you some money. But to be frank, Dallas is a little bit better than they were early on in the season, so we'll give them that.
For sure.
But not good enough to be home favorites here. Tampa heading into Dallas, 3.5, 4-point favorites, depending on where you're shopping. Game total on this one is 48.5. In partner, I think we agree on this one. Which way are you leaning for this matchup?
Yeah, I'm liking the over in this game. I know it's a big number, 48.5, but I think it is definitely doable with these two teams playing. Starting with Tampa Bay, their offense also just on an absolute roll right now. They've scored 26 or more in 4 straight games. They dropped a 40-piece last week on the road against a good Chargers defense. Baker just continues to play super good football. Another 4 touchdown passes for him last week. The big thing, though, we talked about it last week when I took Tampa Bay +3. The rushing attack for Tampa Bay is just off the charts right now. They've become unstoppable, to be honest. Over 150 rushing yards in 4 straight games, and it's really just a combination of all 3 guys: Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, Sean Tucker. Just are all great running backs, very complementary amongst each other, and it just seems like no team has any notion of how to stop them. So when you have a rushing attack playing as well as they are, and then you still have a really solid passing attack with Baker under center, just an offense that's going to be really tough to stop. Dallas's defense has been better since Micah Parsons' return. He has been just on an absolute tear. He is playing some phenomenal football, but unfortunately, they can still be had when they go up against good offenses. The Bengals and Commanders, a couple teams they've played over the last few weeks, each of them had over 400 yards of total offense, and they put up 27 and 26 points respectively. I think Tampa Bay should be able to do that as well, and probably should be able to hit the 30-point mark in this one. For Dallas's offense, Cooper Rush is actually playing some really solid football recently. Over his last 4 games, he has 8 touchdown passes and just 1 interception. He's doing a good job getting the ball to his playmaker, specifically CeeDee Lamb. He seems to be involved early and often, which is, something that shouldn't be that crazy of a concept. But when you look at what Dallas is doing the first half of the season when Dak was there, you're like, where is CeeDee Lamb? And seems like Cooper Rush found him because he was throwing the ball to him a lot. The rushing game has also improved for Dallas recently. They have more than 120 rushing yards in 3 straight games, with Rico Dowdle getting the majority of those touches. So, yeah, I think both teams can break 20 in this game, and I think if Tampa Bay gets to 30, should be an over in this one. Couple injury notes: Antoine Winfield out for Tampa Bay, Trayvon Diggs out for Dallas. So both teams down on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at some of the recent trends here, the Cowboys have gone over in 4 of their last 5, and a lot of that has to do with the improved play from Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush has been playing a lot better. They've been running the ball well. They actually look like a functional team. Unfortunately, they still don't really stop the run super well. They're actually still last in EPA per play per rush, and that kind of has a lot to do with just how really, really bad they were early on. But you bring up a good point in what they looked improved with Micah Parsons back out there. And frankly, Deron Bland. Deron Bland's been a big reason why they've been better in the secondary, but they also Trayvon Diggs is officially down for the season. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think he got
Like something with
I
the
think he's
lower body injury.
I think he's expected to get another surgery. But frankly, Dallas has been good against the spread. They've been 3-4, or excuse me, 3-1 over their last 4 against the spread. But Tampa is back, baby. Tampa is back. They are 5-1 over their last 6 games against the spread, and 4 of those come on the road. Or excuse me, they are 3-1 on the road. So they looked fairly impressive against the spread. And they're just back. When they have Mike Evans, he's nearly unguardable. I think you're going to see a really, really good matchup over there with Deron Bland. And frankly, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. You might even see a pick 6 run the other way and help you out with this over here. So
Yeah,
I
sure.
do agree. I like what you're going to get out of this one as well at the over 48.5. I might lean towards Tampa Bay as well if this number creeps down to 3, but I just don't think it will. I think it's going to be trending the other way. It's probably going to be 4 by the time it closes. And that might be just a little bit too big. Now, frankly, I don't think this game is going to be too far, or I mean, too close, but I also think that Dallas does have the ability to maybe come back and cover if the number gets too big. So
Yeah.
that is where we're at with that one. And partner, that's actually the last one. We wrapped up a little bit early, but that's because I doubled up on a couple of picks there in the second game, or in the 2 games. But this is still going to be a great week. I can't wait to see it play out. A lot of playoff implications. And of course, we didn't go over every single game tonight. If you guys have any games at home that you want us to check out, hit us up in the Discord. ImportantNonsense.com. That's how you become a member. You can hit up me and Vishaal about all of your betting picks right there in the betting chat as well. Hit up the fantasy guys. You might not be in your fantasy playoffs like myself, but
or me.
if you are, they can give you all the advice you need to win your championship. You can bug them as much as you want. And yeah, partner, I think that about does it. Week 16. Only a handful left in the regular season, and then it's playoffs time, baby. I can't wait for it. So, guys, back same time next week, 8 p.m. Eastern. And partner, you got anything? Any parting words for the folks?
Enjoy the week. Should be a fun slate of football, and we'll be back at it again next week. Even more playoff implication football. Enjoy the holidays. By the time we'll get back, Christmas will have passed. So enjoy that. Remember, 2 games on Christmas on Wednesday. So make sure you guys have a Netflix access for those games, because those are also massive, massive games for playoff implications. I think all 4 teams who are playing have currently 8 wins prior to this week starting. So they could all have 9 wins going into that week. So should be a big day of football.
What a time to be alive. Christmas Day on a Wednesday, football on Netflix, baby.
It might be a little too much, but we'll see what we can do.
And until next time, everybody, good night, good luck.